What will the 2010s be remembered for?
This is Dive, a podcast about where our Google searches take us. I'm Cody, and I'm here with my friend Dano.
Greetings.
And Dan, we're going to talk about something very important today.
Tell me about it.
We're going to talk about legacy.
Okay, that's not where I thought you were going with that.
We're going to talk about legacy and why I think it's important. So I've written a manifesto, and I want everyone to sit here for the next 4.5 hours and listen. I was born on a Tuesday.
I can't commit to this. You're going to have to shorten it.
A warm end of summer morning.
Is this Morgan Freeman?
Andy Dufresne crawled through 500 yards of the most foul-smelling stench I can't even imagine.
Is this part of the manifesto, or did you just do a Morgan Freeman mode?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Okay, no. So really what we're going to talk about is what our current decade is going to be remembered for. There are so many different lasting events and things that you can remember other decades for. You know, for instance, the 1940s are going to get World War II, the atomic bomb. In the 50s, you have the McCarthy hearings and the rise of communism. And these are just political ones, right? There are a million other things that happened. The civil rights movement in the 60s, the Watergate scandal in the 70s. You go to the 90s, you have Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and all these things, the September 11th attacks in the early 2000s, but like not just politically, what are we going to be remembered for? What's our generation going to be remembered for in this last decade? That's tech, pop culture, politics. All of these things have such a lasting impact on history and what we're going to be doing. But there's a lot of things that we're overlooking, I think.
What are we overlooking?
Dicks out for Harambe.
Oh my God. Hell yeah, brother.
The rise of meme culture, right?
Oh
Obviously, that is the number one thing people are going to remember about the 2010s.
It's true.
The Harambe thing was really the launch of meme culture, right? And that's been 3 years of memes. And that is 90% of what we see on the internet now.
Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, it's just memes. So what are some things that you remember specifically that you think people are going to look back and go like, oh shit, that started then?
Well, I will tell you, but along the way, I feel like we have to hit our journey here. It's all about finding ourselves along in this wild ride through this decade.
Would you like to start with a fun thing or a devastating thing?
Good news first, always. Hit me with it.
Okay. Apple debuted the iPad in 2010.
Jesus.
The iPad has only been out for 9 years.
Oh my God. That's such a small amount of time.
The amount of iterations of all of these pieces of technology is unbelievable to me at this point. I've had a cell phone for the entirety of my adult life. I have had a tablet for the entirety of my adult life.
Yeah.
I remember not having a cell phone, tablet, computer. I remember a world where I didn't have a desktop in my house. But if you took those things away from me like some sort of cold, heartless motherfucker, I don't know how I would live anymore.
It's true.
Sometimes it's scary to think about a world without my phone. Not because like I'm obsessed with my phone or on it constantly, but paying bills, checking my bank account, maps. I know how to read a map, but nobody wants to carry around a million folded maps anymore.
Right, yeah.
These things are difficult to do.
Do you remember those like triptychs you used to get from like AAA?
Yeah.
You have to like flip up once you think you've passed the edge of the map, you flip it up to the next thing. We learned orienteering in 4-H, compass and map.
4-H.
I have no idea how to use a compass anymore because I have a cell phone for that.
my grandfather, my dad's dad, like real old school type, right? He's almost 90. He was like a really, really smart guy. He worked for Sylvania for a really long time. He served in the Korean War. He's just all around like the kind of person that just knows how to do everything, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got a compass one year for a gift. And I was carrying it around all the time. I don't know how to use a compass. It was one of the cool ones that you got to like flip open and it had like the little clippy thing on it. Yeah, I don't even know. And he's like, you don't know how to use that at all, do you? And I go, no. And he just goes, Why don't you go walk out into the woods and try and get yourself lost? It's going to point you north. We're east from you. Go ahead.
Did you do it?
Yes.
Did you get lost?
No, because I couldn't get lost. I knew the direction that I had started in. But he was like, he knew that I wouldn't get lost. I think he just wanted me out of his hair.
Oh my God. That's
He's
something that like old man Cody would do, I think. to
I
his
know.
kids.
That's what 30-year-old Cody would do. But like the thing is, in the springtime this year, I'm trying to encourage my kids to go out and just walk around and like have fun, right? Because I got to do that as a kid. But we live in a world now where it's really not all that safe to send your kids out not knowing where they're going.
Not really, no.
Right. I mean, I used to go out all the time and not let my parents know where I was going.
Oh, yeah, that was our thing.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
And so who thought we would live to the point where we could say it was a different time?
Seriously.
Yeah. So anyway, I used to go out with my friends. We would ride bikes for miles and like not tell our parents. And as long as I was home before dark, it was fine.
Yep.
Sometimes they didn't even show up until after dark and it was fine. But like my kids, I'm like, all right, I need to know where you're going until you annoy me. And then I'm going to tell you to go out into the woods and figure out where you are. And so I just sold it to Bronte as like, this is an adventure. And then she dragged Aiden along. And she was having a blast because she thought it was like good for her story. She could write stories about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aiden, on the other hand, came back going, we almost got lost. I was scratched up everywhere. This is ridiculous. I'm never doing this again. And like, mind you, I could see them the entire time.
Oh my God.
Our woods are not that deep.
They could walk for 10 minutes in any direction and find your house.
Yeah. Like we are surrounded by a road 400 yards behind us, a road in the front yard, and it creates a triangle. Our property is literally on a triangle.
That's like what, 3 acres, 4 acres?
It's like 3 acres of space.
Amazing. But I think
anyway,
you might have just accidentally touched on something that the 2010s might be known for, which is the death of that mindset. I mean, we had that growing up. Like we remember going outside, playing with sticks, like smacking a stick against a tree. Like that was entertainment for us. We didn't have screens. We didn't have phones.
It was a thing. And like, even during the summer times, my mom wouldn't even let us inside.
Yeah.
It was as long as it wasn't raining, it was get outside. I'll put your lunch out and like, you can come in for dinner, but like go play, be kids.
Right. And that's the whole thing is like, now we were helicoptered over, and like all parents these days, it seems like, I mean, there's not all of them, but the majority of parents need to know where the kids are all the time. They buy them cell phones when they're 10 or younger. Yeah. Kids grow up with cell phones. So it's always that constant communication, knowing when to check in all the time. The parents have to know what's going on, the participation trophies stuff, like all of that. All of that, I think, has come around in 2010s.
I try to hold on to that little bit of my childhood to give to my kids, though. Mm-hmm. Because like they're very much in the digital age at a very young age, right? I limit their screen time. For a guy who has a podcast and streams video games, like I am on the computer way more than they are on the computer. I watch way more TV than they do. But it's like, you need to go downstairs and read books.
Yeah. And
they do. They love reading. But like sometimes they're like, God, dude, I just want to watch Netflix. And I'm like, well, that sucks to suck, man. Like what it ends up becoming is like if you're sucked into that being too reliant on it, your critical thinking skills go down significantly, I think, as a young person. So like I watched a lot of TV growing up and stuff like that, but it wasn't just like sitting around lazily doing it. Mm-hmm. Right. We had TGIF where they ran all the family programming, and then I got to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and like I went to the movies a lot with my dad, but like everything seemed like it had a purpose until I was older, and then we got streaming services. Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, how long have we had streaming Netflix for?
2007.
Crazy. Pretty much our adult lives was the mark of this real digital age, like the instantaneous being able to Google it. Even, Google's been around for a little bit longer than that, but like the powerhouse that it is, being so entwined in our lives and being able to do these things, it's hard for, I mean, my kids didn't know how to start a computer because at school they just move the mouse and it turns on.
Yeah.
Right. And so like these are things that I get to make fun of them for, but at the same time I have to recognize that their problem solving skills aren't great because things just happen. And if they don't happen, then they ask, or they say it's not working. They don't even ask like how to fix it or whatever. They just say it's not working.
Yeah. The kids these days, they're not thinking for themselves. They're not getting out of the house. They just expect it all to be handed to them. And that's kind of what's happening because we're handing everything to them. You know?
But it's not all a criticism, right? Like, because
No.
I can recognize how it's happening. And I think that that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so like us millennials get shit on all the time.
All the time.
For
being lazy.
being entitled and being lazy and
Yep.
being all these things, but we don't see it that way. And I don't see it that way for my kids. They just don't know anything different.
Mhm.
You know, and I try to show them that, and realistically, they're not going to know any of that. They're not going to start to become more self-aware until they're teenagers. But, you know, I see all this progress of being able to. Aiden can read and retain like an entire book in 2 hours.
Wow.
It's remarkable.
That's
He can tell me the exact page that something is on in a Harry Potter book, things like that, right?
Mhm.
But if you ask him to problem solve something simple, like go find the Windex, you know, he might not be, he'll be like, man, I looked in one place. I don't know where it is. You're like, well, that's not how you look for something, buddy. Like, think of all the places it could be. Go and search all of those places. And I think that's attributed pretty significantly to having all of this technology, which to us, we integrated into, but to them, I mean, Aiden was 3 years old when the iPad came out.
They were born into it, shaped by it. Never seen that movie, by the way.
I know. Remember that one time where I was trying to describe it to you, and you're like the guy who was cracking the whip at the racetrack, and it turned out to be Iron Man.
Literally describing Iron Man. Yeah, the guy cracking the whip on the racetrack. That's that guy.
So I would say that in 2010, out of a lot of different things, it's going to be the iPad, right? Takes the cake. It sets the
iPad,
new
yep.
stage for how technology is going to be available to more people. We already had mobile phones. iPhone was out, all this stuff. But like, think about how I can right now sitting here, I can send from my phone to my iPad or to my TV from one device.
Like share your screen, or what do you mean?
Yeah. I could mirror
Yeah.
my screen. If I take a picture now, it is both on my phone, laptop, and then right on my TV instantly.
Yep. That's mind blowing. I remember with our flip phones, we had to like email the pictures to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all this continuity stuff.
If I
Everything
Google
works together.
or if I go into my Gmail and I just type in my name and scroll to the bottom, all it is untitled attachments from my old phones.
Yep. Same here. Same here. All right. 2012. What happened in 2012?
Okay, so this is a cool thing. So space discovery became a focus of the planet again.
Yeah.
Right. So we started to explore Mars pretty heavily again. And this time, you know, people are planning to go to Mars soon, like legitimately go to Mars. I don't know what they're going to find. There are a lot of theories about what Mars is, was, could be.
But the Curiosity rover landed on Mars, so that was a big thing. Like
That's true.
Started drilling it in, finding samples, like sending back data. We have some really amazing pictures of another planet. It's
These
so cool.
high definition pictures that we're now getting of planets.
Mind blowing.
Imagine how insane these are going to be 20, 30 years from now. Which brings me to a really cool point. In the mid 70s, the Voyager 1 was launched, right?
Okay, what's the Voyager 1? Is that a telescope?
The
Or not,
Voyager
what do you
1
call it?
is like a exploratory shippy thingy.
Okay, yep. Big on
The
those.
technical term.
A big guy on those
Sent off into deep
exploratory things.
space. And this is the mid 70s. And in 2012, it crossed the heliopause.
The what?
The heliopause.
No, I don't think that's a word. Are you
It
making things up?
is. Googs it. What I think is significant about this, and the reason that I think that this is going to be something to be remembered about this decade, is that this is significant because space exploration will not be going away, and this will be one of the first things to say we explored space outside of our known area. So this is sort of outside of our solar system, right? It passed a point that nothing had passed before that we were getting information from.
Hmm.
And so over time, say we end up creating this space travel system eventually that can get to different planets and different areas. Like this is going to be significant to that. it may be incredibly archaic, but it look back on it like we landed on the moon, sort of. We made it to the moon. That's awesome. But like, what about Voyager 1? That was the next step after that. The Mars rover, that was the next step after that.
Yeah.
And so space exploration is kind of getting this rejuvenation, even though NASA was defunded and all this stuff. But like, private companies are trying to do these things, and governments are still working together to try and explore space more. I mean, we don't even know a whole lot about black holes yet.
There's so much we don't know.
This is like still the beginning. And even though like from the 60s, 50s until now, it doesn't seem like we've made all that much progress. This is like the foundation of what space exploration is going to look like in our generation, in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Say I live to be 80 years old. 50 years from now, holy shit, what if we did amazing things with space travel in 50 years?
What if we were colonizing another planet in that time? That's what all the big physicists and theorists say that we have to do to survive as a species. Like, you have
at some point we have to. And I'm going to say it right now, live on the record. I believe in aliens. I believe on life on other planets. I don't know if interplanetary space travel of these aliens, I don't know if they've come here. I don't know what. I don't know how smart they are, if they're just living. I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I want us
the truth
to
is out there. That's what you're
saying. Yeah. I want to invest that time and effort. Not all of it, because we have things to worry about here, right? But like, let's pursue that stuff. Space is the final frontier. Literally, like, eventually humankind should be able to travel other places. Again, who knows if like light speed travel is real, quantum leaps. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I want it to be real. I want it to be real so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to do like a quick episode on crazy space facts. Like things like black holes, like when you're really close to an event horizon, time completely slows down for you in comparison to people away from it. Like how space and time are together. How you can go, the faster you go, the slower time goes. Like That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a real thing, observed, tracked, measured.
The faster you go, twins that are astronauts that are the famous ones, they used to have mustaches. They only sent like one guy up into space, and the other one stayed on the ground, and they said their molecular structure was different too. Yeah. Like they had aged differently over that time.
Yeah, and how gravity affects the body, all that stuff. Yeah, it's super interesting.
Again, this is still the most basic information. Like, they're going to look back and be like, these people were pioneers. They were idiots, but they were pioneers. Like, they didn't know shit about shit.
But that's how we all start.
Yeah. Don't know shit about shit.
Talking about life on other planets, I'm pretty sure that they're going to find life on Mars. I think they're going to announce that probably in the next year or so. They'll figure it out. It's not going to be anything interesting. It's not going to be like Mars Attacks with the little men with the bubble hats.
Right. It's not going to be intelligent
stealing
life.
our women.
It's going to be life, like organisms and shit.
It'll be like single-celled or multi-celled organisms. They'll find them. And that'll be amazing, but it won't be like mind-boggling for me. Like I need to see something bigger than that to get super excited about it. Because of course, like, I'm not a scientist, so the little things don't excite me as much. But
yeah,
I think it's gonna be other companies besides NASA that does this. Like SpaceX was the first company in 2012 to put a spacecraft up into space that docked with the International Space Station, for example, and that happened in 2012. So there's other companies like SpaceX, and they're doing amazing things since then. But they're going to be the final frontier, the people that bring us the final frontier, because I don't think any government-run organization is going to pull it off, not in the U.S. at least.
They don't want to, because they're not funding it the way that they used to fund it.
So we need Jeff Bezos to make this happen.
NASA is still launching things and exploring things. They're just not, trying to put people on other planets again.
There's talk about going back to the moon. They're using that as like a staging area for Mars. I could see why that would be a good idea. It's attainable.
Isn't it like a 6-hour flight to the International Space Station? I wonder how long it is to the moon.
Let's Google it.
How would we do that, Dan?
We have a podcast. It's called Dive. It's where we dive into things. It takes about 3 days to reach the moon. If you're traveling at about 240,000 miles per hour. If you're traveling 240,000 miles per hour, you'd get there in an hour, because the moon is 240,000 miles away.
That is
So it doesn't take too long.
So far.
Yeah. Yep.
Imagine how scary that must have been.
Oh my God. In 1960 or whatever it was, when like pocket calculators didn't even exist, when they had computers that literally printed out tape.
Who would have thought that, like, from Alan Turing to landing on the moon to having a phone in my hand?
Yeah.
In 100 years. Not even 100
Not
years.
even. 50.
That's not 50.
I don't know. I can't do math.
It's like 80 years.
Another thing about the moon, like I've heard the famous album by what's their faces? You know the faces. Fucking the English guys, the big pig flying dudes. Pink Floyd. You know 'em.
We got there.
We got there. The album called Dark Side of the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
I never made the connection that the moon is tidally locked, so no matter where you go on Earth, you will always see the same face of the moon. The same face always faces the Earth, and I never made that connection. I just think space facts needs to be covered. I don't know.
Space facts. We'll just call it space facts.
Space facts. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty interesting. I really like that topic. Let's keep going though. Let's move into 2013 here. 2013 was the launch of the PS4 and the Xbox One. That's really important.
God.
I think that may not be one of everyone will look back and be like, oh my God, the PlayStation 4. They're gonna go back and say like this was a change in gaming. Because consoles existed, people love consoles, but I would argue that the launch of those two systems really changed the dynamic of American video game culture and how quickly games would come out and how micro purchasing and all these things happened in a very short amount of time after those were released.
Oh my God.
The graphics changed.
I'm just sitting here and just shocked that was that long ago. I remember sitting at my desk at work being researching information about the new launches.
Yeah.
That was 2013.
2013.
Oh my God.
I think over time we're going to see crazier. They just today or yesterday announced the PS5.
Damn.
And I'm going to say that those systems, the newest Xbox and the newest PlayStation, are going to be around for at least a decade.
Yeah.
It'll be they will be here for a full decade. They're going to, change the way that they're developing games and how they're doing games. I mean, you can look it up that the video game industry is making so much money every day, hundreds of millions of dollars every day.
That's the future. I mean, it all ties in with Netflix and Twitch and how people consume media. It's video games are just one of those things that it's the future, and whether you're an old curmudgeon that hates those young kids on their Nintendos or not, it doesn't matter, because this is the future. 100%.
My kids are in the esports club at school.
Could you imagine that? If you were their age, I'd be in my element, man. I'd be in my element. That'd be incredible.
Yeah, our clubs were student government, business.
Yeah.
College and careers.
Boring ass stuff.
Debate club.
Yeah, debate club. That was my favorite.
Yeah. Those were our clubs.
Yeah.
They don't even have home ec in schools now. Did you know that? Not in all schools, but in a lot of schools, home ec isn't a thing.
Are they still not teaching you how to do taxes? I don't think they are.
I mean, I learned how to do a lot of certain things because I was dumb and I had to take consumer math.
Consumer math?
I didn't have to take math A and B or any of those.
Yeah.
I was bad at math. And so they put me in the remedial class, but the remedial class was more helpful than any of those other classes based on the field that I went in, to be clear.
Yeah.
I just took consumer math. So it was literally about how you use money and checks and
it's applied math.
Yeah. It was wonderful. And I didn't feel bad about that at all. I didn't have to take whatever you guys were taking. I mean, you were taking advanced math. Yeah, you were taking advanced classes. I was not.
Yeah.
I never took a calculus class. I never took a pre-calc class. I never took anything.
And you didn't miss a thing. Tell you
I
what.
never took trigonometry. I never took anything.
It's all made up. None of it matters.
In college, there were so many of our engineering students had to take differential equations.
Yeah, no.
And like all
I
you
had to
ever
do
heard
that.
was like that people failed DiffyQ.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's
They
horrible.
failed it. They constantly failed it. And like,
Terrible.
I'm glad I didn't go into one of those like STEM majors really.
Yeah.
Because like I would have failed out. I'm too dumb for that kind of thing.
I mean, it does actually exist as a thing. People use them. I just, in my career, I don't use them either. And it was just so much stress, and it made me hate math, taking those courses that I failed at. I mean, I didn't fail at them. I succeeded through like having a tutor and getting out of school to like learn it with someone who actually knew the content and could sit with you one-on-one to explain it to you. But I just never found the usefulness of it all. Just because you couldn't apply it to anything. It was just all imaginary stuff to me. But anyway, 2013.
2013, North Korea conducts
what are they
its
doing?
third nuclear test,
Oh, God.
which sparked off the whole North Korea is going to go to war with everybody thing again.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
All I have to say to this is thank God, Dennis Rodman is alive. And he was able to go in and talk him down.
Defensive Player of the Year, man.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year.
Fashion icon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that worked, but
It
Kim
did.
Jong-un there
It was a thing.
clearly likes the Rodman.
Big on the Rodman.
Yeah, I think that when it comes down to North Korea, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what actually happens politically.
Yeah.
With certain countries and the leaders of those countries, and I think that there are a lot of opinions about how Trump handles foreign relations, and there are a lot of criticisms of how Obama handled foreign relations. And you don't know what actually happens with these things. You don't know if North Korea is actually a threat. You don't know if Russia is actually a threat. I think there are a lot of proxy war kind of things happening because Western developed countries are no longer trying to fight territory wars, right? They're funding other people to fight wars on their behalf for influence, right? The Syria Turkey thing that's going on now, like we are funding the groups that we're supporting, and the Russians or the Chinese are funding the other group. It's sort of like what happened in a lot of other wars over time. Vietnam was one of those. Korea was one of those. You have these wars that we are not quite fighting, but we are definitely fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that North Korea was one of those massive talking points and will continue to be, because we're starting to see what's inside of North Korea. We're starting to get a glimpse of that. And that started in this decade, of a real glimpse of like what that country is like and how things are running there. And even now, I would say we're just starting to see what that's like in China.
Yeah.
Because over time in 2013, also China surpassed the United States in scientific research.
Mm.
And so we start to see this development of other countries overtaking our prestige in certain things, but they have less regulation on certain things. And that's where it's hard to decipher. Like, where do you give up pieces and parts of your identity to in the name of progress?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the thing with communism or fascism or things with a lot of nationalistic sense of unity, right? Like, it's not about the self, it's about the country. And there are times where that is great. You saw World War II. That was probably the peak of what it was in America, right? Like, we have a common goal. It's not about the individual, it's about the group. And then those things go away as you hit times of peace. Mm-hmm. When in communist countries, it is always about the country and never about the individual. And you see that with a lot of the protests that are happening and people kind of defecting from North Korea and telling us about what it was like and what it is like. And they're letting reporters in now. And we're starting to see some things. Mm-hmm. I think over time, you're going to look back at North Korea and see we didn't know a whole lot about what was happening. We had an idea.
Yeah. I worry that like in 10 years from now, like that's going to be the hot button issue again. Like, it started to rise to the top. It started to be a big issue where we were talking with leaders there and we were learning more about what was going on, but then it kind of backed off because there's other stuff happening, and our own political climate here in 2019 is just, there's not enough news in the day to cover what is really happening. But it's going to be a big problem. Like, it's just one of those, like, if I may borrow a global history term from high school, it's a powder keg, you know? It's one of those situations, like, it's going to be an issue that we will have to deal with. And by we, I mean the entire world will have to deal with within the next few decades, I think.
Yeah. There's no way that a North Korea 10 or 20 years from now can be a North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
With the rapid growth of a global society, as far as it can go, I don't think that we're going to be a full-blown global society. But you're going to see pressure for that country to open itself up and know what's happening.
Yeah, they have to be involved. If they're not included, they'll be left behind.
Yeah,
and they're kind of have been. They kind of are still. You know, what little I know about North Korea in general, this was not a planned topic to talk about, but just in general, they need to adapt. They need to accept how global economies work, or else they're not going to be part of it. That's really all it comes down to. Yeah. Sad things happened in 2013. The Boston Marathon bombings happened April 15th. That was something that impacted me directly, actually. I was in my office in Boston, and
I remember being terrified of that the second that I heard, one, because of the attack, but like I knew that you worked in downtown Boston because you had sent us a picture of the marathon that day.
Yeah.
And so I texted you and you were like, it happened right outside my window.
Our office building overlooks the street and also the finish line for the Boston Marathon. And so I was sitting at my desk, and I don't think I've told too many people this story, but sitting at my desk and felt and heard like just a giant boom, and we were thinking, oh, they must have brought some kind of cannon or something to celebrate the race. I don't know, like, of course you're not thinking terrorism immediately. That's not your first thought.
Why would you, right?
But now you do. Now in 2019 I do. So we heard that and we were like, okay, that's weird. But then we noticed like the streets started clearing out. People were moving away from the finish line. We can see the finish line, but just barely. It's a little bit further up in the distance. So it's not like we saw like people running from it or anything like that, but we just saw people moving away from that area. And then the street just completely cleared. Police came, lots of sirens. And then I was like, okay, something is wrong. Like that doesn't seem right. I don't know what's going on. So of course I did what any millennial would do. I went to Twitter. Because you can't go to a news outlet, like you can't go to a Fox Boston or whatever. So I went to Twitter, and the first thing I saw was a picture, and on the street there was just blood all over the street, and I was like, "This is not good. Like something happened. This is awful. Like this is some kind of accident or some kind of attack." And so I remember showing my coworkers and like telling them like, "This is bad. This is not good." And so we didn't know what happened. We just knew that a bomb went off, and they told us we needed to leave the office. We need to evacuate the office. But of course, the first thing you do when you leave the office is like, I don't know where to go, because if you kept looking on Twitter, you kept seeing reports of other packages that were found, like suspicious packages that were found in various areas. Some of them were just people phoning in, hey, there's a trash bag next to the subway, like that must be another device or something like that. Like there were a few other devices around, but not nearly as many as were reported.
In that kind of panic, anybody who's trying to figure out anything, like they're gonna call it a trash bag that's next to the T. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. See something, say something. So like the first thing that I'm thinking too is like, okay, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not thinking like a terrorist, but when you're in that situation, you have to think like, what would they do? And so the first thing that I'm thinking of is this person is trying to cause harm to people. What would they bomb next? And that is 100% public transportation. Like there's what else would they hit, right? Because everyone's trying to get away, so that's where you probably put the next bomb. So I'm thinking like, okay, it's not safe to go home. I'm not going home. I'm not getting on public transportation right now. First off, obviously because it's full of people. Second off, because if there's any other device as a terrorist, that's probably where I would put it. So I'm freaking out. Everyone's terrified. So it was this really surreal moment where we go outside and everyone's kind of wandering around aimlessly. It was almost like a zombie movie or something. Like it felt so very, strange. Very surreal, because you're walking around and no one really knows where to go or what to do, because everyone keeps hearing, oh, there's a bomb here, there's a bomb there, there's a bomb there. We don't know where to go. We don't know what to do. And so we ended up going to a bar, and we're thinking like, okay, there's like 4 or 5 of us. Like, as long as we stick together, that's probably the best way to go anywhere. And then we go to a bar, and of course, and not of course, but I mean, sadly, there's a guy there who had been in New York City on 9/11. So he was just in tears through the whole thing because he was getting major flashbacks of that. So we were hearing his story. And then, no, we didn't know what to do. We were just like, I guess we'll just have a drink. Like, what else are you going to do? I mean, so we had a drink and then talked about it all. And like, we're just terrified. I probably was shaking most of the time because was just trying to process it all. We don't only after found out really what happened. And
were you guys watching the TV at all? Because I remember very clearly watching the TV. Like everybody in my residence hall was sitting in the lounge. We were watching the television and like watching the manhunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that
everything
was the next
about
thing that came of it. Yep. The manhunt was what came next. Because, well, first off, I remember going home eventually throughout, at some point during that day, like just being terrified to get on the subway, but going home and then through that night.
Was the subway quiet?
I don't remember. I really don't remember. I think it was pretty full, but I think it was mostly full from just the traffic of the marathon. So regardless of whether or not that event happened, I think it would have been packed anyway. But I remember going home, and then I remember over the next day or so, there being that whole thing on Reddit where they tried to like identify the bomber. It was like the Find the Boston Bomber thing. And they like pointed fingers at all of these innocent people. And it was like this huge manhunt for these people that weren't even involved until they finally determined who did it. And then they had the actual manhunt. And that was, as if the first one wasn't enough, the second wave of this whole thing was that manhunt where you had the shootout in Watertown, and you had like the guy, like it was the 2 brothers, right? And the one
it was 2 brothers.
Like, was on the street like just shooting at cops, and they shot him and he like fell, and then the other brother like ran him over in the car that they were driving, and like he ended up getting away, and then he was hiding out in someone's backyard in a boat.
In their boat,
And they ended up finding him.
Oh man, this is weird.
It was wild.
This is because like watching 9/11 happen on television, right? Like a lot of people saw the second plane. A lot of people saw that happen, right? And you didn't see, it wasn't a domestic thing. Like it happened on American soil, but it wasn't like there was no live televised manhunt that we were watching on TV, right? It was a lot of speculation about things that, where did this come from? We weren't prepared for this kind of thing. And the response to it was literally just people coming together, going in and trying to save people on 9/11. Like that's what it was, right?
Right. Everyone was banding together for the cause. Like the event happened, and we knew that there wasn't anyone like around that we could finger point and say, you did this. It was just like, okay, this happened. We're reacting to it. We're banding together.
And like, because of all the things that were put in place after 9/11, I feel like while this was a shock and a horrible thing that happened, like people were ready. Yeah. People were ready to put together an investigation, figure out what happened, and bring justice to those people. Yeah. And it was so intense because I think everybody at that point everybody, even like just people watching television, were not gonna deal with another thing and like be caught off guard the way that we were caught off guard like for 9/11. So like it happened, but like people were like, this isn't gonna be a long-term thing. We're gonna solve this. We're gonna figure out who did this. And we're gonna bring him to justice. Yeah. And I felt like this crazy sense of like patriotism again, of like how great people were coming together and doing all these things. But it was so scary again to think that these things were happening in America.
Yeah, right. Yep, it was like the 2010s were like another rise of more and more terrorism. I mean, terrorism has been happening since 9/11, but it just seemed like the events were getting more and more bloody, and more scary. And so like all of that was really quick. Like, so the April 15th is when it happened. The shootout and all of the manhunt stuff was only a couple days later, April 19th, 5 days later. And then they had him. And then they were charging him on April 22nd. Right. So like it was really quick. It was over quickly. But it just makes everyone scared. And now like, when you go to a music festival, you're like, okay, is someone going to take a gun out? Like, or if you go to a movie theater, is someone going to take a gun out? Like 2012 was when the Dark Knight guy came in.
Yeah.
You know, like this is stuff that now we live in fear of. And like the whole thing for me is like you can't think about it. Like you can't be scared to do what you wanted to do because of the chance that this might happen, because then you're not living. You're doing what they want you to do, which is living in fear. And I'm not going to live that way.
Yeah, when you get caught up in that cycle of living in fear, you can't live, and you can't kind of spread the idea of like kindness and love to people. That, I mean, that sounds a little hippy dippy, but like that's what it is, right? If you live in fear all the time, and that's part of what's so contrasting about society right now, is people want to believe in what they believe, and that's totally fine. But if you're not kind of spreading compassion to other people about like it's cool that you think one way and I think another way, you fall into this weird rut of like everybody else is against what I believe in and against me, therefore,
Yeah,
it's a little scary.
Very scary.
But also
on
a little bit of a more popular, or a little bit of a happier note, the World Trade Center reopened that year.
Nice. I mean, that right there, that's a testament to,
the American way, really.
I mean, yeah, I mean, ultimately, like overcoming that issue is like almost like we laid it to rest. Like, you know what? Screw you guys. Like, boom,
we're here
back
still.
and better than ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Incredible.
2014.
What about it?
To be honest with you, this was my least favorite year.
What happened in your life in 2014?
What was I doing in 2014?
You were a ripe 25 years of age. You could finally rent a car.
Accurate.
Did you rent cars?
I can't say that I did.
Okay.
Oh, I do actually remember. I did try to rent a car because some friends of mine decided to go to Daytona Beach, and we're going to take my car, and then my car hit a pothole on our way to Daytona Beach and took the tire off the rim. Didn't bend anything, didn't break the tire, just popped right off.
Jeez.
Yep.
That's
and so
American
we were like,
craftsmanship.
oh, not a problem. We'll just go and rent a car and we'll then take that. And then they were like, you can't take this out of state. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, no, you can't take a rental car like out of state across the country. And I was like,
I feel like they would never know, other than the fact that you put
I was like,
thousands and thousands of
you
miles
wouldn't
on it.
know.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we do know. There's GPS in the cars.
Oh, get out of here with
And
that.
I was like, all right, whatever. And we ended up taking my friend's sister's car down instead, and his dad put my tire back on when we were gone. It was
There
great.
you go. And I think
a good time.
you might have just accidentally segued into what we want to talk about on 2014, which is tech.
Yeah, that's accurate. That's probably the only exciting things that seem to have happened in 2014 that I was kind of looking up / cared about.
So one of them was, of course, what was it?
Was it the smartwatch?
It might have been the smartwatch.
Because
everyone has them.
Everyone does have them. And to be clear, this wasn't the year that smartwatches came out.
No.
This is the year that people wanted smartwatches.
Right.
This was the year that this became the new thing to have. And I see people all the time with it. If you pay attention and you walk around, you will see a lot of people wearing smartwatches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you know, and the viewers are about to know, listeners, viewers, whatever you people are, Cody don't like jewelry.
He don't.
He don't.
So much that you got a tattoo.
So much so that I got a tattoo of my wedding ring to avoid wearing jewelry.
Amazing.
I don't like it. It gets in the way. I think at times growing up, I was cool with like small bracelets because I don't know, they look cool, but I can't keep them on for long because I find that jewelry gets in the way of normal movement. My wedding ring, for one, like got in the way all the time when I was trying to pick things up because my fingers wanted to go together and they couldn't go together. And watches always bang on things. And I don't feel like putting a $500 piece of equipment on my wrist, knowing very well that my wrist is the first thing to hit things that I don't want to hit.
And also knowing full well that $500 piece of equipment will be obsolete in, 10 months.
That's not true. You just bought an outdated one.
That's true. But back in 2014, we're talking, they were so slow. I mean, they were testing the market. They were just getting out there. People didn't even know what they were for because they didn't have all of the features that today's have.
You don't understand that kind of technology when you're first getting it. Like you get the idea of like what apps and stuff were on it, but it was pretty limited back then about what smartwatches could do, right? They're pretty versatile now from what I see, but I've never actually tested one out. I mean, you have, so why don't you tell us how helpful it is or cool it is?
Well, I would say like stepping back, like the first wearable that I ever had, we'll call them wearables because that's what the tech industry likes to call them, was just a regular Fitbit, and all it did was count steps. It didn't even have a screen. It was like you double tapped it, and it would show up how many dots you filled in.
I had one of the early Fitbits.
Yeah. Did it have a screen? Did it have like a...
No. It was literally just like 4 like little lights inside of the band.
I had that exact same one.
Yep.
And that's all it did. It just counted your steps, and like not even very accurately.
No, yeah, and I definitely stopped wearing it because it would just bang into shit all the time.
Yeah. I got it from work because we did a fitness challenge. And so it was like, whoever gets the most steps wins a prize or whatever. I don't know. I didn't win.
Wins a prize or whatever.
Yeah. That's how things work. That's how contests at work. But nowadays, we have much, much fancier wearables. People are all about them. They do so much more than count your steps. They give your notifications. You can check the weather. You have your calendar. You have your just various apps. Like I wear it at golf, like playing golf. I can just look down at my wrist and see exactly how far away I am from the hole at any given time because it's looking at the GPS. It's incredible. What? It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, so there's a golf app. There's many golf apps, but the one I use has it so that when I walk on the course, it knows what course I'm at. And then when I just raise my wrist, the screen lights up and it shows me you are, X number of yards from the pin, from the middle of the green. It's really freaking crazy. Impressive. Yeah. I can track my shots on it. I can say what club I used. I can keep score on it, how many putts I putted. Like all of that stuff I can do right from my watch without taking my phone out.
Wow. I didn't realize that was a function of... See, that's like... Imagine what these things could do 25 years from now.
I know.
Or how much better they will be. Not necessarily what more can they do, because I don't know how much more they could do. Like if they just start putting the software on there so that any app you have could be used by the watch. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, they've come, like I was saying, they've come a long, long way. So, like, one of the other things that the new models have is fall detection. So, if you're an older person or, I don't know, someone who's very active and you take a hard fall, you can see, you'll get a notification. It'll even prompt you or automatically call emergency services.
Holy shit, that's cool.
One has it's not an electrocardiogram, but it's like something like that where it measures your heart as well as heart rate. It's like, I don't know exactly what a cardiogram is, to be honest with you, but it does have really fancy health features like that. I'm actually looking at it right now to see what else you can do. It does have little reminders like, your fitness goals are X, Y, and Z. So like keep going. It like encourages you to keep working out and it has a stand goal. It has a active goal.
A stand goal? It knows when you're standing?
Yeah. Yep. And it'll remind you throughout the day, like you'll get a notification saying it's time to stand up. You haven't stand up in a while. So it'll
the future is now.
Yeah. You can pay with a credit card like Apple Pay through the watch.
That's cool. Not a lot of places around me have tap functions for pay, which is weird. Like it's 2019 and I know I live in the middle of nowhere, but it seems like it should be pretty commonplace now, right?
It's so much more secure than credit cards. Yeah. So much more secure. I don't know what's going on with the U.S. I think Europe is a little bit further along with security. Like they have like contactless cards where you just tap it. They've had that for a long time.
Contactless cars?
Yeah, cards like credit cards. You can just tap it instead of swiping. Or they all had chips way before we had chips. Yeah,
they've been pretty secure about their data too. Like I'm pretty sure, and we'll be corrected if we're wrong here, but I won't be corrected about this. America has terrible security of data.
Absolutely.
But I'm pretty sure Europe has pretty good security of data. Like they've taken the precautions as the technology progressed for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been much quick to adopt and change to the new technologies. I think that's probably going to be one of my big takeaways of what will 2010 be known for. It's just
data breaches
and security and this whole like the movement towards Facebook where we were sharing all of our information with strangers at a drop of a hat. Like, oh, I just met this guy. I'm going to friend him on Facebook. Boom, I have access to his entire family, pictures, where he lives, what he does, how old he is, what his birthday is, all that stuff.
You know what's really strange is when I was looking stuff up for this episode, what I And I'd heard this before, but what I ran into, and I asked my brother about it, who's he just turned 17. Gen Z right now seem to be smarter about this stuff than we are.
Much smarter.
So they have like their personal profiles and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they're doing like weird, sketchy shit on the internet, they have second and third email addresses that they've been using so that they don't fuck themselves over.
And their email address isn't their name at gmail.com, which all of ours are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they have multiple things for multiple different uses so that they don't screw themselves over later on in life.
It's smart.
Most of them aren't using Facebook.
No, because we adopted it, and then we invited all of our parents, and then we left them there.
And then we abandoned that. And now everybody who is our age is pretty much like a Facebook voyeur.
Yep.
Right? Like we don't post on Facebook. We just see what everybody from high school is doing and judge them with our friend group.
Exactly.
That's not necessarily true. I don't even really look at it all that much.
Not nearly as much as Twitter or Instagram.
Those are the things that I care about because the people that I follow on Instagram are people that actually care about what's happening in their lives, right? Facebook is a thing that I used for a very long time, and I probably go on there to check like things that I had posted.
Yeah.
And then I am off for the day. Because I find that when I scroll, everything that's there is stuff that I've already seen on Twitter or Instagram.
Yeah, definitely. Like Facebook is just screen grabs of Instagram. Instagram is just screen grabs of Twitter. That's literally, it's just full circle.
But the thing is like, there's Instagram's the in-between because not everybody uses Twitter. I just started using Twitter and I don't even tweet from my own name. I tweet from from Dive.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I don't tweet from my own. I tweet from Dive. Yeah. That's it. That's why you're going to see a bunch of Buffalo sports things on there.
Yeah, right. I was just thinking also when you said how we're not doing a very good job with privacy and everything, how we've come full circle on that. So like our kids are now smarter than we are with being online. It's kind of come full circle. Like our parents used to say, don't get into cars with strangers and like don't take candy from strangers and don't even talk to strangers.
Did you take candy from strangers?
I would take candy all the time from strangers. Delicious.
You know what I never understood? Not to diverge from your point here. All these popular like YouTubers and stuff, when people send them things, they don't take them.
They don't
like,
take them?
If fans send them like food, like they'll like Postmate them food. A lot of them will just throw it away.
Oh, you just assume that they're trying to poison you.
I wouldn't. I would be like, hell yeah, it came from Postmates. Like, who's gonna poison it? They're gonna bribe the Domino's delivery guy to poison my pizza?
You have no idea how deep the pizza poisoning ring is.
It's the Gen Z Illuminati.
Yeah, it's true.
They don't know.
But anyway, my point was just that like our parents used to say, don't do this, be safe. And now our generation is like, just put whatever you want on social media. It doesn't matter. And now the next generation is like, okay, we need to be a lot more private with what we actually post and how we interact with strangers. It's kind of the cycle that's come back around on itself.
For sure. Absolutely. Now that we've covered this, I want to talk about the biggest piece of technology to come out in the last 50 to 100 years that came out in 2014.
Oh, wow. This sounds big.
Google Glass.
Oh, my God. What a revolutionary, just game changer.
Just incorporated into my daily life.
In
Every single day, I live by Google Glass.
I have 3 sets. I have a backup pair.
I have only seen Google Glass in the one video that I ever saw about it.
The one where the guy like skydives onto like
that's it.
Yeah.
That is the only time I have ever seen or heard Google Glass other than people mentioning it and joking about it.
That right there was just a poorly conceived idea. The only application that I could potentially see that being used would be business or like supply chain logistics kind of situations or like, warehouse workers, things like that.
So for those who don't know, why don't you explain it quick?
No one in their normal day-to-day life is going to wear these things. So it's literally just glasses with a camera on your face. Mm-hmm. Like a camera built into the glasses. It has kind of virtual like heads-up display where you can interact with things. It has all this like face identification type technology. You get your notifications. You can interact with it either by touching it or even with your eyes. You can like see notifications come in. It'll give you directions and things like that.
what I feel Google Glass was somebody at Google really liked all of those 80s futuristic movies and thought that they would incorporate one of those ideas into it. And that's not how future technology works. Look at Tomorrowland, for example, and like the things that like Disney created are like 50s novels, and like these things didn't progress the way we wanted them to. None of that technology happens.
Yeah.
And we created things that actually worked. We created things that happened more organically. And Google Glass was like the furthest from that possibility that you could get.
Yeah, you just described it. It's like we created things to make our lives better or supplement our lives. Like our cell phones are not obtrusive. They just kind of work well with our lifestyle. But this was something that they came in and were like, let's try to just change everything about what you know about technology. Let's put a camera on your face and give you information about what bagel shops are nearby based on your geolocation. Like it was just like way too much. It was way too intrusive.
Yeah. And that's also one of those things that what was it? Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Joe Rogan maybe a year ago. I don't know. And they were talking about like flying cars and why we don't have those. And he explained it the same way that I would figure that you have. Google Glass didn't work. Mm-hmm. It's like you can try to create this thing because you think it's cool, but it's not functional. So creating flying cars doesn't solve your traffic problems. It creates bigger, worse problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you try to incorporate things like that, like if you have a 2-lane highway and then it goes to a 4-lane highway and then it goes to an 8-lane highway and you still have traffic, you're not going to reduce the amount of traffic by trying to make cars fly. You're going to create more traffic and bigger accidents because there's no more barrier. There's nothing to stop these things from colliding with each other, and the force from the ground is going to cause bigger problems so people can't fly below you. Like, you're just creating a bigger problem by saying something's cool and we should try it out.
Absolutely.
And Google Glass sort of does the same thing. Like, put this thing on your face. It'll give you notifications. Don't worry about the phone that's in your pocket. Look in front of you at the screen in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, it just didn't work. It flopped completely. I think it was out for just a couple of years and then kind of dissolved. Like, there was just no world. Like, Snapchat also came out with their own glasses. That's a flop as well. No one's going to wear a camera on their face, and no one wants a camera pointed at them. Like, that's the whole thing. It's just never going to work.
Yeah.
Not in today's society. Like, it was way too early to try to force that. I mean, maybe sometime soon that'll be
I don't think it will be a thing because people don't want... That is literally the conspiracy of Big Brother's always watching.
It truly is. Truly is.
And we can joke about Alexis all day, but that one's legitimate.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
I think at best it works as a heads-up display on a car.
Mm-hmm. Or again, like a business or, some kind of work
like
scenario.
Quality control. Yeah.
Like, think of the person who takes, a piece of, I'm just making a really bad example, but takes a nut off of a conveyor belt and puts it onto a screw. Like, that thing might be able to watch out for the malformed components so that you don't attach them in a incorrect way or something like that. Like something very simple.
Cool
like you could kind of scan and like see like, oh, that's a bad one. Don't pick that one up. That kind of thing. But I just don't see it working out as a form of like social media and a way to enhance the experience that you have in the world. Like, people want to live in the moment now. We're seeing this new grassroots kind of movement back to get away from technology and be in the moment. Like, not go out to dinner with your friends and sit there all on your phones not talking.
I was at a Stevie Nicks concert 2 summers ago, and it was an amazing concert until Rod Stewart came out, but she was fantastic. Like, so good. And there were a bunch of younger people there too, and she walked out into the crowd and was singing, and all these people came out, and 4 or 5 people had their phones like right in her face, and she stopped singing.
No way.
She like grabbed the phone and like gently put it down. She says, "Please don't." And the girl brought it back up again, and she goes, "No, listen to me. I'm here to give you guys a show. Like, be here right now with me."
Yes.
You will remember this better than you can depict a picture to somebody else.
And no one's going to want to go through your Instagram story and look at the videos.
Nobody cares. So I stopped. Not that I had my phone out for it, but like I stopped pulling my phone out to record things and like take pictures unless it was like very intentional.
Yeah. Right.
So I take a picture at a concert. Usually before everything starts, I will take a picture of something. I will take a picture with my wife, and then I will take one short video of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch those. I put them up on my TV, but I only take like one short video.
Mm-hmm.
And generally it's not even during my favorite song because I just want to be there for it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like I have like 8 to 10 good pictures of me at concerts with my wife enjoying it, and like that's it, because we have better stories telling the story
Yeah, absolutely.
than we do about, hey, watch this 5-minute shitty video that nobody else cares about.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's so true. And that's one of the reasons, again, full circle here, back to why I like the Apple Watch, is because it's a much less obtrusive. So if I'm sitting at work, or even out to dinner, my wife has one too. So like occasionally, like if we know that someone's trying to contact us about something, it's a lot less intrusive just quickly glancing down than it is like digging your phone out of your pocket or out of your purse or whatever it might be. So I think at work especially, I can be in a meeting and just like quickly glance at my watch and then, okay, that's not important, or, oh, that's the information I needed. So
I don't even bring technology into my meetings anymore.
We're so connected here, like with my work and technology, like we're so connected that everyone expects you to be on it all the time, unless it's after 5. Like my company's really good with that, but at work, it's like you're expected to be able to respond quickly, because I value that in a coworker as well.
During the daytime, like when we're not in an actual meeting, like we use Microsoft Teams, I expect everybody to be monitoring it and responding back, and it's really increased our workflow.
Mm-hmm.
But when I go to meetings, I bring in a field notes pad and a pen, and that's it.
Yeah, I love that.
But I'm also dealing with people.
Right.
Yours is tech. Mine is 100% people all the time. And so I realize if I go in there, people are more focused on me, and I am more focused on them if I don't have anything to distract me. I'll still doodle from time to time, but I find it's much easier to pay attention to people if I don't have something else in front of me that's electronic.
I just wish I could write faster. I can type so much quicker than I can write. So if I take notes in a meeting, I want it to be on my laptop, not on a piece of paper.
I have a pretty good shorthand, not like a real shorthand, but like my own shorthand. I realize that a lot of times when I'm writing, I don't write in cursive, but I write continuously.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to leave out a lot of useless sounds in words when I write.
Interesting. Give me an example.
The is always just HE with a cross at the H, because I know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I'll leave out a lot of vowels when I'm writing because it doesn't matter. E's go away a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess if you know, I mean, like if you just look down, it's clear what you're trying to write.
It just happens. I never intended to do it. It wasn't a conscious decision. It just happens when I'm writing.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah. And like I'll never write numbers out. Punctuation doesn't really exist, and it's all a bullet point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everything is a bullet point.
Yep. That's what the bosses love. Don't give me sentences. Give me bullets.
Yep.
Love it.
Okay.
I guess 2014 was more interesting than we thought.
Well, I think it was just because that was a tech conversation, but that kind of makes me think. So like we're wrapping up the first half of this decade, right? And people kind of need that takeaway for at least that first half of the decade. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about technology in the 2010s in all ways.
It really comes down to that. And how do you think people are going to see that down the road, right? It's like science and technology. We're making a bunch of different developments of stuff. A lot of political things happened, obviously, but we're going to see this real shift when we are old men, grumpy ass old men telling kids to get off our lawns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're going to look back and think that this was a very strange time, and like, look how far we've come with technology. That's my prediction, is like, we're going to be like, oh man, we did not use this the way that we should have been using this. All of these things came out and we didn't appreciate them for what they were going to be, but we used them in a way that was pretty dumb or archaic the way we will be using them then.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Google Glass might come back in a couple of years, 5-10 years. That might be something that people need and want and will use. We didn't understand it now. Like we didn't know how to apply it. But now, future down the road, there might be some changes to society and into how we even function and work, and our relationships and all that technology might change yet again.
This has been Dive. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you didn't, I don't care. We have part 2 coming to you next week. Tweet us at HDDive. Bye-bye.